Clearly audible and video also clear, sir.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Then we can start.
Okay, sir.
We welcome you all for the next session. I am extremely and privileged to introduce Dr. A. Pandikumar sir, Scientist, Functional Materials Division, CSIR Central Electrochemical Research Institute, Karaikudi. Dr. A. Pandikumar sir done his master's degree from Gandhigram Rural University and doctoral degree from Madurai Kamaraj University. He previously worked as a research assistant postdoctoral fellow from University of Malaysia and research assistant professor at SRM University. He awarded RSC affiliate member by Royal Society of Chemistry and as world's top 2% scientist in 2020 and 21 in chemistry category. He nominated as RSC Advances Reviewer panel member. He got Early Career Research Award, TST Sir, New Delhi, and he also got Albert Nelson Marcus Lifetime Achievement Award. He got Outstanding Reviewer Award from Journal of Photochemistry and Photobiology, Chemistry and International Journal of Hydrogen Energy. He got Publon's top 1% peer reviewer and Centennials of Science Award in Chemistry from Publon's Web of Science. He got High Impact Research Grant Postdoctoral Research Fellow Award from University Malaya, CSIR Senior Research Fellow and UGC JRF Meritorious Fellow, University Grant Commission, India under Basic Scientific Research Scheme. His research interests are design and fabrication of functional materials, interfacial engineering in dye-sensitized solar cells, photocatalyst for environmental remediation and photoelectrocatalyst for solar fuels, two-dimensional layered materials for electrochemical sensors. He completed 2 research projects from funding agencies of CSIR, SICRI and DST SER in New Delhi worth of 9 lakhs and 75 lakhs. Now he is having 4 ongoing projects from various funding agencies like CSIR, Energy Devices Team, DST NPDF Scheme and DST HFC Technology Mission and DST SER Early Career Research worth 47 lakhs, 20 lakhs, 38 lakhs and 36 lakhs. He is guiding 5 PhD scholars, 2 postdoctoral fellow and 1 research associate. He published 132 papers, edited 16 books and 5 book chapters. At present, he is having 4,494 citation, which include 39 H index. He is a full member of American Nano Society, editor of Advanced Journal of Physical Science, assistant editor of International Journal of Research in Engineering and Technology, and referee in RSC Advances Chemical Communications. Nanoscale, New Journal of Chemistry, Physics Journal of Power Sources, Journal of Hazardous Materials, Scientific Reports, ACS Nano, ACS Applied Materials and Interfaces, Solar Energy, Ceramics International, Vibrational Spectroscopy, Applied Surface Science. He is a guest editor of Materials Focus, a special issue on functionally active materials design, processing and applications, international expert of National Center of Science and Technology Evaluation, Ministry of Education and Science, Republic of Kazakhstan and international expert of postdoctoral fellow selection. And he's a research foundation of Flanders, Belgium. He organized and coordinated an impressive number of conferences, seminars and workshops. I am happily inviting Dr. A. Pandikumar sir for the technical session 2 entitled on heterojunction functional materials for near future hydrogen production. Now the session is over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your nice introduction. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Pungadi for providing me opportunity to share my ideas in this 5 days faculty development program. Then I would like to thank the management for considering me as a resource person for this wonderful faculty development program. So good morning to all of you. So today I am going to talk about heterojunction functional materials for near future hydrogen production. So I have chosen this topic. Why? Because nowadays our government policy is moving towards a electrical vehicle. So the electrical vehicle is normally used by charge through the electricity, but the people think that the electrical vehicle is a green vehicle, but indirectly we are polluting the environment. How? You just listen that you are charging your electrical vehicle, but that the electricity is produced from fossil fuel. So still you are utilizing the natural resources. So that means that the electrical vehicle concept is not 100% greener approach. So with this respect, we have to develop some alternative strategies for production of electricity by using renewable source. So that is our primary idea. So in this respect, I have chosen this topic, heterojunction functional materials for near future hydrogen production. So in this presentation, I am just going to discuss about what is the scenario of the present hydrogen production and what are the challenges and what are the methods we can produce the hydrogen. Then especially how that solar energy is used to produce that hydrogen for that electrical vehicle application. So that I will brief in the first part of the lecture. Then later I will discuss how we can enhance the performance of this solar hydrogen production through the functional material, especially by making the heterojunction. So initially, I will give some fundamentals about the solar hydrogen production through photocatalysis and the photoelectrochemical cell. Later, I will discuss what are the recent advances in this area, what we are doing for that to improve this solar hydrogen production. So before moving to my lecture, I will give a small introduction about my institute. So actually, I am talking from Karaikudi. The Karaikudi is located in the south part of Tamil Nadu, especially if you look at Tiruchirappalli, Madurai and Rameswaram. It is located in the middle of the three cities. Okay, so we also call it as Chettinadu. We call it this Karaikudi also as a Chettinadu. This is our Central Electrochemical Research Institute Annexer building. So here you can have that n number of sophisticated analytical instrument and other R&D activities. Everything is going on in this Annexer building. So this building is constructed 75 years ago. Still, it is a very structural engineering in the building. So this institute is established to mark the occasion of our independence in the year of 1948. So that time Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, he want to establish several national laboratories to fulfill our economical growth. For that, he decided to start several national laboratory in different locations. So that time his classmate Vallal Alappa Chettiar, he approached him. Then he offered 15 lakhs rupees cash as well as 300-acre land to establish this Central Electrochemical Research Institute. So this institute is the 11th national laboratory to dedicated for that R&D activity. Then this is the photograph is taken during the inauguration ceremony. You can see the Bhatnagar also here. So our institute offer two courses. One is PhD, another one is BTech, Chemical and Electrochemical Engineering course. Then we are also offer the project for final year student, those who are doing BE, BTech, MSc, MPhil in the final year. Suppose they are interested, means they can do their project in the Central Electrochemical Research Institute. Especially we are having the excellent sophisticated analytical instrument facility that will be useful for faculty members as well as research scholars. So this is our the main entrance. So our institute R&D activities mainly focused on electrochemistry. So the electrochemistry background, we are working on corrosion and material protection and electroplating and metal finishing technology, electrochemical power source, electroorganic and inorganic, electronics and electrocatalysis, electrochemical material science, functional materials, and pollution control. So the people are working in a diverse area, but anyway we are aligned with the electrochemistry. So that's why our institute is called the Central Electrochemical Research Institute. So in this institute, I am leading this solar energy materials research lab. Especially, we are developing several functional material, especially graphene, graphitic carbon nitride, bismuth-based material, iron-based material, oxide perovskite, halide perovskite. We are developing several functional material. Then we are exploring the application for, especially in solar energy conversion, like production of electricity and hydrogen, then conversion of carbon dioxide into value-added product like methanol, methane, formic acid, everything. This is my research group. So as already mentioned that I am guiding the 5 PhD student, then 2 postdoc, then the RA as well as the project associate. So this is my team. So what are the data is I am going to present in this lecture that will be developed by my student Mr. C. Murugan, DST Inspire SRF. So we have developed several heterojunction material and used for photoelectrochemical hydrogen production. So we obtained the promising result, which I will present at the second part of this lecture. So this is some of the alumni who completed the tenure in my group. Then they have acquired a different position in abroad. So this is my funding agency. As already the chairman indicated, we are operating several projects, especially the CSR Sikri in-house project and the energy and the energy devices thematic project. For that, I would like to thank that CSR. Then we are also having that technology transmission project, that is hydrogen and fuel cell based one. So the result obtained from this project only I am going to present in this presentation. Then I would like to thank that DST SERB for that early career project. Then I would like to thank that DST Inspire for offering the PhD fellowship for my 4 of my students. So we are also having the international collaboration like US, Malaysia, Taiwan, Korea, Hong Kong. So we are having that several international collaboration. Then this is our materials library, especially we are developing several functional material. Then we are working on that material. So whatever the material we are developing, all the material will not perform better. So, but some materials that have that key performance, so those materials have that key performance, I used to put it in that library. So in that case, you can see this hierarchical structure of bismuth-based materials. So these materials possess excellent photoelectrochemical hydrogen production capability. So that's why I put it here. Then the honeycomb structure of this TiO2 nanotube. So this material showed the excellent performance in converting carbon dioxide into methane. So the methane is that kind of fuel, so that have the value added application. So that's why this one. Then the graphitic carbon nitride and the oxide perovskite, these materials also that possess key performance in photocatalytic conversion and dye-sensitized solar cell application. Okay, so now come to the story. So as already mentioned that our government policy is focused on e-vehicles. Okay, so the government, they want to canvas to people want to move to towards the electrical vehicle. For that, they are offering us, they announce several schemes, subsidy, then cashback and tax exemption. Those who are the purchasing this e-vehicle. So you just see they are aiming to register 5 lakh new electrical vehicle in another 5 years. So they have think that, so it is a good approach. As we mentioned that the electrical vehicle is that a greener approach. It will not pollute the environment. We can reserve we can save that natural resources. But you just look at this picture. So they are using the electrical vehicle. They are charging. But you just look at this. The charge can be done by generating power using the diesel generator. That means you are having the electricity, but that the electricity you are producing by running the generator by using the diesel. So it means you are again polluting the environment, and you are overlooking the natural resources. So this is the problem in that electrical vehicle. Okay, so in this scenario, if you want to change, we have to change our mindset. So in this connection, we have to look at the alternative potential opportunities. You just look at this, the total energy reserve by natural resource only this much. So for example, we have only coal that have the capability to produce 900 megawatt of energy. Likewise, uranium by nuclear power, you can maximum go up to 300 megawatt. The oil maximum to 240 megawatt energy. So likewise, you have the reserve only to produce only this much. But if you look, this is from the natural resources. If you look at the renewable resources, it have that excellent renewable energy production capability, and also we can improve this capability by in upcoming year. Okay, so especially if you look at this wind, the wind power that can produce 25 to 70 megawatt per year. But you just look at this in 2040, the energy consumption will be 23 megawatt. Okay, so you can simply you meet the energy demand by using this wind energy. Okay, but you remember that you have several renewable energy sources. But what is the drawback in these renewable energy sources? You just look at this. I will give a simple example. If you go to the south part of Tamil Nadu, especially Nagarkoil or Kanyakumari, Tirunelveli, you can see a lot of windmill. Why? Because there the wind flow is good, so they have put so many windmill. But I am sitting in Karaikudi or someone in Chennai, but they want electricity. They are able to produce that electricity at Tirunelveli or Nagarkoil. They have the capability. They can produce electricity 70 megawatt of energy per year. But how come I can get the electricity? So they have produced the electricity. So they have to transfer the electricity through the power grid. Okay. So in that way, as a consumer, I am paying the money is higher than what I am consuming through the natural resources. Why? Because you can produce the electricity in cheaper manner at Tirunelveli or Nagarkoil. But while I am getting that electricity, that will involve production cost as well as the transportation cost. So both will add it together, then it make more expensive as compared with the conventional energy sources. So this is the drawback. But if you look at the solar energy is available everywhere, especially that our India is sunlight abundant country. If you look at other countries, they have the half of the year that will be mist or snow falling. So many problems. But our country is it's sunlight abundant country. So we have to consider this as a huge energy you can utilize everywhere. For example, I will give one example. I want electricity. I can put a solar panel on the top of my building. Then what are the electricity I required? I can collect it from my house itself. Okay, so such a kind of advantage and all possible with this solar energy. So that's why we have to consider the solar is the promising renewable energy source as compared with the other renewable energy source. Okay, so again, let me consider that electrical vehicle. So the electrical vehicle, as already mentioned, that they are charging that energy is produced from fossil fuel. But alternatively, the hydrogen is one of the promising fuel. So this is going to be our next generation fuel. So this has a huge energy density, 140 megajoules per kilogram, and it has that it will not produce any byproduct. It will produce water only as a byproduct. It has several advantages over that other fossil fuel. It's like it has high energy conversion efficiency. It is produced from water, and there is no emission, so it will not pollute the environment, and it is earth abundant. So you can it won't be exhaust. It will be recycled in different way. Then you can store it in different form, like you can store it as a gas, or you compress it and make the liquid, or you can make it bonding with metal hydrides, then you can store it. So in that way you can do it. the long distance transportation you can use this way. So likewise, this hydrogen has several merit over the conventional fuels. Okay, so let me see what are the types of hydrogen. The hydrogen can be classified based on production method. So you can see the gray hydrogen, then the blue hydrogen, then green hydrogen. So the hydrogen generated from hydrocarbon free renewable sources or excess process heat via non-fossil process such as electrolysis of water. That is, we call it as the green hydrogen. So you remember that you are producing hydrogen without involve any hydrocarbon, or you are doing electrolysis water, then you simply produce. So that is, we call it as a green hydrogen. So here there is no carbon dioxide emission. Okay, then let me talk about blue hydrogen. The hydrogen is produced from hydrocarbon sources where the generated carbon emissions are captured or utilized. So that will be considered blue hydrogen. So that means you can produce a hydrogen from the hydrocarbon, but the emitted carbon dioxide that will be captured and converted to value added applications. Okay, so that we call it as a blue hydrogen. Then the last one is gray hydrogen. The gray hydrogen is directly produced from the hydrocarbon, but here the carbon dioxide emission that will be directly contaminated into the atmosphere, so that will spoil the environment. So these three type of hydrogen that can be produced in different ways. Okay. Okay, so let me see the hydrogen other than fuel cell application. You can see you can produce the hydrogen by electrolysis method. That hydrogen that can be used for the electrical vehicle. Then you can, as already mentioned, that this hydrogen that can be combined with carbon dioxide, you can make a synthetic fuel like methanol, methane, formic acid. So such a kind of value-added fuels. Then you can upgrade the oils. Then you can produce ammonia by combined with that dinitrogen. So such kind of value-added applications also available with this hydrogen. So that's why we have to focus more on this hydrogen. So we are giving a priority for that production of hydrogen. Okay, then let me explain why hydrogen is our next generation fuel. So this is the electric train that is introduced in that Germany. So this train is operated by using fuel cell with the help of hydrogen. Likewise, the Toyota also launched this Mirai car. So this car, if you feed 1 kilogram of hydrogen gas, then you can drive 650 kilometers without polluting the environment. So likewise, the US also developed the bus that will be used for the public also. So this is also operated by fuel cells. So okay, so how that hydrogen used in fuel cell car or fuel cell vehicles? You just look at this. This is the cross-sectional view of the fuel cell vehicle. What is given here? So here there is a fuel cell stack, then the hydrogen storage tank, battery, then the power boost converter, power control unit, electrical motor. So what happened once you fill the hydrogen here, then this hydrogen is moved to the fuel cell stack while you are driving. Then there is a separate selective membrane. So that will allow only oxygen and repel other gases. Okay, so that oxygen that will pass and contact with this fuel cell stack. So there the hydrogen and oxygens are combined together. The electricity is produced. Then this electricity that will pass to the booster, then that booster will pass this electricity to the power control unit, then you can drive the vehicle. Meanwhile, this hydrogen and oxygen is combined together, then it releases byproduct as a water. Okay, so here there is no carbon dioxide emission, there is no other the hazardous gas or other byproduct are emitted. So only the greener product water is released while you are driving this car. So that's why the hydrogen is our next generation fuel. I will just show you a small video how this fuel cell car work with the hydrogen. So here there is a simple equation. That's the combination of hydrogen and oxygen together, this reaction leads to production of electricity and release of water. So this is simple concept. Likewise, by producing the hydrogen, you just take water while you are splitting the water into hydrogen and oxygen. Again, you can be able to generate electricity. So that is the beautiful phenomena is gifted by God. Okay, so while you are making hydrogen from water, you can able to produce electricity. While you are producing water from the hydrogen, you can able to produce electricity. So that is the beautiful phenomena in this water splitting reaction. So as already mentioned that you can see there is a hydrogen storage tank, then the battery, fuel cell stack, boost converter, electric motor, power control unit. So now the hydrogen oxygens are compared together to produce electricity. As like filling the petrol, you can just fill the hydrogen, then you can drive. So, for example, to produce the electricity, you can drive the car. Suppose one person, if you are traveling in the car, it requires a minimum amount of energy. That time, what will happen? The excess energy will store in the battery. Sometime you people are driving in the hill, or like 5% are simultaneously traveling that car, then it need additional load. Okay, so in that case, the battery will supply additional energy. You can smoothly drive the car without any issues. So that is the excellent technology. That video is visible. Is that video is visible, ma'am? Hello, ma'am. The video is visible.
Yes, visible. Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
then
sir,
I will continue. I will continue.
Yeah.
Okay, now you see how that electricity is produced. Let me see. So this is the fuel cell. So the one side the hydrogen is coming, another side the oxygen is coming. The hydrogen and the oxygen both will combine together. It produces electricity as well as water. So there is no byproduct. The water only the final product. Okay, let's be back to the original story. So now you people realize that the hydrogen is going to be our next generation fuel. So how it can be used to drive the car and whatever the things, the working mechanism, everything is clear now. So now we have developed the technology to use this hydrogen to drive the car. But now the question, how we can get the hydrogen? Okay, so the hydrogen can be produced in a different way. As already mentioned that the gray hydrogen, green hydrogen, blue hydrogen. So that will be produced in various sources. So likewise, you can produce the hydrogen from biomass, then from the hydrocarbon, then electrolysis of water. The other one is solar hydrogen. So the solar hydrogen that can be classified as photobiological hydrogen production, photoelectrochemical hydrogen production, photocatalytic hydrogen production, and thermochemical water splitting. So through this four method, you can produce the hydrogen. Among these various methods, the photoelectrochemical hydrogen production is more promising. I will explain why in upcoming slides. Okay, so we have seen that what are the methods for that hydrogen production, but now you see the scenario how that hydrogen demand is going to be happen in by 2050. So let me see. So nowadays we are here. So now that hydrogen demand is almost 70 million metric tons per annum. Okay, so this will increase up to approximately 540 million metric tons, because this hydrogen is going to be used in future in various sector. Likewise, you just see for power generation purpose, you need 63, and transportation, you can see it is a huge amount. So likewise, this hydrogen is going to rule the this energy sector. So we have to concentrate on this hydrogen production technology. Then we have to improve the efficiency. We have to come out with several technology for the hydrogen production. So hereafter we have to focus more on developing technology for hydrogen production. Okay, so where we are standing in that technology for that hydrogen production, I will just tell some example the technology readiness level for that hydrogen production. If we are studying, doing research in college, you are doing some experiment, you are able to produce hydrogen, then you are reporting in some publication. So that that will be the technology readiness level 1, 2, 3. So we call it as a basic level. Suppose I am working here, so I have achieved benchmark efficiency, I have optimized the material, then I have to go with the next level to scale up the hydrogen production. So that will be advanced level, that will in collaboration with other institute or some company, then we can do this advanced level research. So that we call it as technology level readiness level 4 to 6. Suppose I have achieved scale up the hydrogen production through some technology. I have developed the technology also. Now we have to move to the next level. So applied level. So here we have to work out how much manpower needed for producing this much ton of hydrogen, how much cost it will involve. So if we sell it to someone, then after they purchase this hydrogen, how much the profit. So many factors that will involve. So that will be tie up with the industry. That time only it will be possible. So that level will be 7 to 9. So this is, we call it as a technology readiness level. So that will indicate the different various stage of maturity level of the technology for hydrogen production. Okay, now you people realize that. So what is TRL1 to TRL9? Okay, so now this is the original status of technology readiness level for the hydrogen production with a different technique. Okay, so now you can see this steam methane reforming method. So that will be have the TRL level. So what are the hydrogen we are having right now? So that will be coming through the steam reforming method. Okay, so likewise the autothermal reforming. So this is it reached the TRL level 9. So this is also where the hydrogen can be kept. Then the gold gasification process, that also the method for the hydrogen production. So those will be the other things and all, they have mature state. But if you come to that, the renewable methods like biological method or solar to hydrogen production, so these are all in the primary stage. But if you utilize hydrocarbon, then only you can produce this much hydrogen. So that's why the technology here. But if you explore more amount of fossil fuel, then in future you cannot be able to produce the hydrogen. Still, there is a lacking of natural resources. So anyway, we have to push this one. Now it is in the technology readiness level, TRL 1, 2, 3. We have to bring in another 5 years to this stage, at least this stage, so that we can meet out the hydrogen production, hydrogen energy demand in future for the electrical vehicle application and the electricity production and other value added application. Okay. So now this is the scenario. So even though we have seen how much that hydrogen is required for another 10 years and the next 20 years. So we have seen everything. But the original scenario, what are the technology we are having with us right now? This is the one. Okay, so we have to consider this solar to hydrogen production, this one, so that we can we have to focus this one. We have to do some advanced research to bring to TRL level 4 to 6. We are also trying for that only. We got the hydrogen and fuel cell project from the DST Technology Transmission Division. Okay. Okay, now we will go through the solar hydrogen production. As already mentioned, the advantage of the solar hydrogen production. So the solar hydrogen production is very simple. You are just taking the water, you are adding some semiconductor, then if you shine with the sunlight, then immediately what happens, the hydrogen and oxygen is produced. So in this reaction, there is a two-side reaction will happen. Indirect reaction, that is hydrogen evolution reaction, oxygen evolution reaction. In hydrogen evolution reaction, that two proton that accept two electron, then it produces hydrogen, molecular hydrogen. Likewise, the oxygen evolution reaction, the water will decompose, then it forms molecular oxygen as well as proton as well as the electron. Okay, so that electron will be used to produce the hydrogen. So this is the key step, that is a rate determining step. So the overall, the water will get split into form oxygen and hydrogen. Then for that you need the energy 1.23 volt. So that you can split the water. So this is the theoretical energy requirement for that splitting of water. Then you can just to look at this picture. You are you are having the semiconductor photocatalyst. So that that photocatalyst have that conduction band as well as valence band. So the valence band potential, the valence band position should be above the hydrogen evolution potential. Conduction band potential should be the above the hydrogen evolution potential. The valence band position should be below the oxygen evolution potential. Okay, so that if you shine the light, the holes will be created here and the electrons are moved to the conduction band. Then these holes oxidize the water and produce oxygen. Then it produces the proton. This proton is moved here, then it accepts the electron, it produces hydrogen. So this is, we call it as a simply photocatalytic hydrogen production. Okay, suppose this is simultaneously happen, right? Oxygen evolution, hydrogen evolution, both will happen based on the band position. I will give another example. So you consider this is a one kind of a catalyst. Here the conduction band position below that oxygen evolution, hydrogen evolution potential. So the another photocatalyst that have that the position above the hydrogen evolution potential. So in that case, this semiconductor will act as a oxygen evolution catalyst, and this semiconductor will act as the hydrogen evolution catalyst. Why? Because this hydrogen, the electron will go here, that electron will move through the redox reaction, and this electron is transferred to the neighbor semiconductor. Then the neighbor semiconductor transfer the electron here, then that will reduce the proton to molecular hydrogen. So that is a jet scheme. We call it as a jet scheme. Okay, so this is the one. Okay, So I will just give that some fundamental mechanism in that photocatalytic process. You just look at this. This is the semiconductor that have that valence band as well as the conduction band. So upon shining the light, that energy equal or higher than the band gap, this valence band electron promotes to conduction band electron, and the holes are created here. That the holes will be moved to the surface, and a donor will donate the electron to the hole and regenerate the hole, and this donor will get oxidized. Likewise, this electron move to the surface, then it donate the electron to the acceptor. Then that the acceptor accept the electron and undergo the reduction reaction. Okay, so other than this electron and the hole directly can combine together. It forms the bulk recombination process. Sometimes this electron is moved to that surface, and the holes also move to the surface, then it will form that surface recombination process. So this is the elementary process that happen in that photocatalysis. So now suppose here the holes are here. If you add water, the water will get oxidized, then it produces oxygen as well as proton. Then the protons will move here, then it accept the electron here, then it produce the hydrogen. So this is called the photocatalytic hydrogen production. Then as already mentioned, that the photoelectrochemical water splitting. So here also almost similar phenomena, but here you have to apply some little bit applied potential. So you have to apply some potential, so you can drive the reaction very fast. Okay, so suppose you are having that N-type semiconductor that will act as a photoanode, where that water oxidation happen, then the electrons are moved through the circuit and reach the counter electrode. Then the proton produced here that will be moved to the counter electrode, accept the electron and produce the hydrogen. Suppose if you look at this here, if you use p-type semiconductor, what happen? The holes are here. So here the hydrogen can be directly produced. As a complementary reaction, you will get that oxygen as a complementary product. But if you use both p-type and n-type and as well as p-type electrode, then that photoelectrochemical cell, we call it as a tandem electrochemical cell. So here the hydrogen production and oxygen evolution reaction is very efficient. So both dedicated electrodes are placed in the photoelectrochemical cell. So this is the type of photoelectrochemical cell. Okay, so when we look at the periodic table, you can see the green color indicated the materials that can be formed only monometal oxide. That metal oxide that will be used for that photoelectrochemical hydrogen production. Suppose wherever I have indicated with the brown color, so that elements form binary metal oxides. So that will be used for that photoelectrochemical water splitting process. So like iron oxide, cobalt oxide, nickel oxide, copper oxide. So this will be at all used as the zinc oxide, everything you can use it. Other than this, you can just strontium titanate, barium titanate, barium stannate. Likewise, so many the binary metal oxides that you can use it for water splitting application. Okay, so I will explain that how that water splitting takes place in a photoelectrochemical cell. As already mentioned that in the photoelectrochemical cell there is a photoelectrode. So the photoelectrode is composed of semiconductor. So upon illumination, the semiconductor will undergo charge separation. Then the electron hole pair will be produced. So the hole will be oxidized by water and it produces the proton and oxygen. Then the electrons are moved through the circuit and the proton are passed through the proton exchange membrane and accept the electron, it produces the hydrogen. So this is the simple working principle for photoelectrochemical water splitting. So this photoelectrochemical water splitting become the emerging research. Once this paper is appeared in the Nature in the year of 1972, this paper is reported by Fujishima and Honda. They have developed the photoelectrochemical cell that have the capability of producing simultaneously electricity, then oxygen as well as hydrogen. So this is the Honda Fujishima cell. What we are recent days we are using that one. So after that, this subject will be promising one. So many people they are started to explore this approach. Then this photoelectrochemical water splitting become the emerging research area. Okay. So now you have seen that the type of photoelectrochemical cell, the working principle of photoelectrochemical cell, everything. Now you have to develop the material to use in photoelectrochemical cell. Okay, you want to design some catalyst for that photoelectrochemical water splitting. You have to consider these 4 aspects. Well, I will tell you. The first one is suitable optical property. The next one is suitable bandage alignment. Then the other one is charge separation and transport. The final one is stability against light radiation. Okay, I will explain the first component. So the first requirement is you just look at the solar spectrum. The solar spectrum have only 6% of UV light and 46% of visible light. Suppose you are developing a catalyst that will be active in that UV region, then you will utilize only 6% of UV light in the solar spectrum. The rest of the solar spectrum will be waste. So that means the system will be inefficient. So to overcome this limitation, you have to develop the catalyst that have that visible light absorption property. So that means it will increase the light absorption. Then it can absorb more amount of photon, incident photon. Then you can create more amount of electron hole pairs. Okay. Then in such a way, the system will be the more efficient. Okay. So this is the first criteria. The next criteria, you just look at that the band position. You are taking some semiconductor, so that semiconductor should have that conduction band position above the hydrogen evolution potential, the valence band position below the oxygen evolution potential, so that the material will be more efficient for that photoelectrochemical hydrogen production. Sometimes this conduction band is below, then if you design such a material, that will not be useful, even though that will fulfill the need of this visible light absorption property. Then the third criteria, charge separation and transport. So this charge separation transport, it's nothing but you are having the semiconductor. Upon illumination, the electron hole pair should be separated immediately. Then the electron should be migrated away from the conduction band immediately. Otherwise, the charge recombination takes place by combining the electron as well as hole. So in that case, what are the material you are developing? That material have the excellent charge separation and the electron migration property, so that even it fulfills the first 2 criteria, so that the system will be more efficient. Then the last one, I will give one example. Cadmium sulfide is the excellent photocatalyst, visible light active photocatalyst that will give excellent hydrogen production capability. But the problem that will fulfill this suitable optical property, suitable band alignment, suitable charge separation and transport property, everything. But the problem, the cadmium sulfide, if you prolonged, it will subject to the prolonged illumination, then the cadmium will be decomposed to form cadmium 2+ and the sulfur, elemental sulfur. So as a result, the performance will be affected. Okay, so you cannot use for commercialization purpose. So you have to consider this stability against the irradiation. So you have to design the catalyst, consider 4 criteria. You will come out with a successful catalyst for the photoelectrochemical hydrogen production or photocatalytic hydrogen production. Okay, so what are the parameters drive the photochemical reaction? So you just look at this. If you are having the spherical catalyst, that will have some efficiency. Suppose if you make porous material, the electrolyte that can be penetrate inside, that will increase the performance of this photoelectrochemical activity. Likewise, if you tune the band gap, so the band position will be shifted, then the region of light absorption that also change. So the electronic structure is important. Likewise, crystal structure. So if you create defect or something, then you can improve the charge transfer process. So that will also plays the important role. Then the final one, as already told, the photocorrosion, that will the key factor that will drive your reaction. Okay. So you have to consider this also. So these parameters that will drive your photocatalytic reaction or photoelectrochemical reaction. Okay, so you have seen this picture. There is a plenty of catalyst reported for photocatalytic or photoelectrocatalytic hydrogen production because of that band alignment. as already told, na, band position, based on the band position. So there is a 3 category of photocatalyst are reported here. So one is metal oxides, the another one is metal nitride, the another one, last one is metal chalcogenides. Okay, so if you look at all the photocatalysts, that will composed of metal. Okay, so but among the various photocatalysts, you can see there is a one catalyst is the C3N4, GC3N4. Okay, so that is a metal free catalyst. So you can see it is composed of carbon and nitrogen. Okay, so only it's composed of carbon and nitrogen. There is no metal. It is a metal free catalyst. Okay, so that's why our interest also, it is a earth abundant material element, so that our interest also developing this graphitic carbon nitride based material is our interest. Let me see the current status of this graphitic carbon nitride. You can see this much papers are reported, especially in India, 143 reports. Among the 18 reports on photocatalytic water splitting until 2018. After that, we have published some 7 or 8 papers with this graphitic carbon nitride by using photoelectrochemical water splitting. So no one work on the photoelectrochemical water splitting with this graphitic carbon nitride, that is metal free photocatalyst. Why our interest on this water splitting with this graphitic carbon nitride? So you just look at this report. So this report is reported in 2008. They have used this metal free polymeric photocatalyst, graphitic carbon nitride, as a photocatalytic catalyst for hydrogen production. Okay, but they have found that the hydrogen production capability is very low, but it has that excellent stability. As already mentioned, that you want to go for commercialization purpose, then you have to do a stable catalyst. So for that, we have considered this particular catalyst, graphitic carbon nitride. Okay, so you just look at this, that timeline for the travel of this graphitic carbon nitride in photoelectrochemical water splitting. So the first report is appear in 2015 until the 2020. There is a plenty of composite they have made. They have done the heterojunction, many things. So here in that year of 2020, they have achieved the photoelectrochemical water splitting at 0 volt. So in the 0 volt, there is no bias, but still this material can be able to produce hydrogen production. So that will be a promising achievement. Okay. Just skip this slide. Okay, so the carbon nitride. So the carbon nitride, that will be categorized into 3 different categories. The first one is nitrogen doped carbon. So nitrogen doped carbons also, it's a kind of carbon nitride. So the typical example, nitrogen doped carbon nanotube, nitrogen doped graphene is the example for this kind of family. Suppose if you look at this CXNYHZ compound, the monomer of monomers of this carbon nitride, especially in the cyanamide, dicyanamide, melamine, melan. So these are all the some of the compounds belongs to this family. But if you look at the CXNY material, so triazine based graphitic carbon nitride, heptazine based graphitic carbon nitride. So these are all typical example for this family. But the majority case, the carbon nitride, that will implies this family only. You can see this is the different form of carbon nitride. You can see this is the monomers, then this is the polymeric carbon nitride. So we call it triazine based graphitic carbon nitride, heptazinamide based graphitic carbon nitride, melan. So these are all some of the polymeric graphitic carbon nitride. So the graphitic carbon nitride which will be used for photocatalytic and photoelectrocatalytic hydrogen production. So the structure is developed with that Berzelius as well as Liebeck. So he proposed the model C3N4 structure. He proposed C3N3HN model. Okay, so you can see this is the finalized two structure, especially triazine based graphitic carbon nitride, heptazine based graphitic carbon nitride. So the graphitic carbon nitride is a visible light active catalyst that has the band gap in between 2.7 to 2.8 electron volt. So that will absorb the visible light photon. So this structure is compressed of sp2 hybrid is the carbon and nitrogen. So that leads to establishing the pi conjugated electronic system that makes this material is visible active. As well as already mentioned that it has the advantage of it is a metal-free catalyst, non-toxic, low-cost, and tunable structural properties. You can see the structure. So the first one is triazine based structure. The second one is heptazine based structure. When compared to the stability of the both the case, the heptazine based graphite carbon nitride is more stable because you can see this the extended double bond is more here, but here the double bond is very less, only 3. But here almost 6 double bonds within a monomer unit. So that's also the thermodynamic factors and the theoretical studies also reveals this material is more stable than this material. So the graphite carbon nitride that can be synthesized by using 2 different methods. So the first method is the top-down approach. You take the bulk material, you exfoliate, then you will get the thin layer graphite carbon nitride. Likewise, the bottom-up approach, you take molecular precursor, then it will subject to that pyrolysis followed by polymerization process. You will end up with the heptazine-based graphite carbon nitride. You just look at this, you can take any precursor, melamine, cyanamide, dicyanamide, urea, thiourea, anything you just take, then just to pyrolysis at the decided temperature, you will get it this one. Okay, so what is the reaction pathway for the development of graphite carbon nitride from the molecular precursor, cyanamide? If you take the cyanamide, it will be dimerized, then it forms dicyanamide, then it will undergo cyclization reaction, followed by again the condensation reaction, it forms melim, then finally the polymerization process, it forms polymeric carbon nitride. If you look at this, if you take the cyanamide, then at 130 degrees Celsius, it forms the dicyanamide by liberating ammonia. Again, this cyanamide further, if you increase the temperature, it forms melamine. Then further, if you raise the temperature, it forms that melon. Then finally it forms that polymeric carbon nitride. If you further rise the temperature, then it will be get fragmented. Then finally the carbon and the nitrogen both will be disappear beyond that 700 degrees Celsius. Okay, so this is what the carbon nitride we can synthesize. Also controlling that precursor as well as the reaction condition, you can tune the morphology, you can synthesize any kind of morphology with this graphite carbon nitride. As I already mentioned that the precursor, what are the precursor you are changing, accordingly you can change the morphology also, then you can change the surface area. Okay, but once you prepare this material, you can use for application. But the problem, the bare pristine graphite carbon nitride that have high charge recombination property, so it will not show the excellent performance. So for that, you have to do several strategies to improve the performance of the material, especially band gap engineering. You can add some nanocarbon loading, make the porous structure, forming the heterojunction, surface sensitization, tuning the dimension, adding co-catalyst, defect, controlling the defect. You can make the composition or hybrid material. You study the structure and physiochemical property, then you improve the performance. Then that will be used for several solar energy related applications. Okay, so the other functional material is the bismuth-based functional material. So this bismuth-based functional material that will be formed in 4 different forms, especially single component, binary, ternary, and layered structure. Okay, so the single component, it forms bismuth nanoparticle. The binary compound, it forms oxides, chalcogenides. Then the ternary, it will form the mixed oxides, oxyhalides, and metal oxides. Then the layered structure, it forms that halide perovskites. So that will be used for photoelectrocatalytic or photocatalytic hydrogen production. Especially this material will form this particular element. Then if we make the metal oxide, that will be more efficient, that will open the application in the area of photocatalysis and photoelectrocatalysis and the energy storage device also. Likewise, the halides also combined with this bismuth, then it forms the bismuth oxyhalides. Okay, so this is also so that excellent performance in photocatalysis and photoelectrocatalysis. Okay, so why this material is good for photoelectrocatalytic water splitting? You just look at this, the band position of conduction band as well as valence band. So this material is suitable for water oxidation process. As a complementary reaction, you will get that hydrogen. You just look at this. This material will oxidize the water and it produce oxygen, and it produce the proton that will accept the electron here, then it produce the hydrogen. So that's why this material is also the promising one. But this material also suffers from the charge recombination process. Why? Because the pristine material always will not show the performance. So because of the charge recombination, for that improving the performance, the alternative strategies, you can doping with the metal and non-metal, or you can play with that stoichiometry, so you can improve the performance. Likewise, you can add some conducting substance over this one, then you can improve the performance. Also, you can control to low dimensional structure, then you can improve the performance. Then finally, you can make the heterojunction, then you can improve the performance. So our approach, making the heterojunction. Why? Because I will tell you, you just consider this single photocatalyst, either graphite carbon nitride or bismuth based photocatalyst. So upon illumination, what happens? This electron will move here. Then after some time, that electron will combine with this pole. Then the system will be inefficient. You cannot able to produce sufficient hydrogen. Okay, excuse me. இந்த தண்ணி கொண்டு வாங்க. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Okay, so I will explain this recombination process with this simple component. Suppose you are standing on the floor, you are jumping. Later, what you will do? You will fall on the floor only. So likewise, that jumping process is the excitation process. So once it absorbs the energy, it will undergo excitation. The electron are move here. Again, it will come here. If it is a single semiconductor, then I will see how I can avoid this process. So for that, you just stand on the floor, then you put the you put a stool or table here, then you jump, then you can stand over there. You will not reach the ground. Okay, so in that way, I just add one more catalyst here. So I will add one more semiconductor here. As a result, what happened? This upon illumination, this will undergo charge separation. Then the electron move here. That the electron will immediately move here. So no more electron is available here. Likewise, once the electron move here, immediately these holes will move to the neighbor semiconductor. As a result, what happened? There is no holes available for recombine. Here, there is no electron available for recombine. This electron will be used for reduction process. This will be used for oxidation process. So this is what we call it as a heterojunction. Okay, so now you people understand that why we have to use the heterojunction to avoid the charge recombination process with this simple example. Okay. So what are the types of heterojunction? So the heterojunction is nothing but the conventional heterojunction, then facet heterojunction, then PN heterojunction, then direct jet stream heterojunction. So the conventional heterojunction, that will be classified into three different types. The first type is type 1, straddling gap, staggered gap. Then the last one is broken gap, that is type 3. So we call it as type 2 heterojunction, type 1 heterojunction. So the name itself we call by using this type. Okay. So what is type 1 heterojunction? It's very simple. You just to look at this. This is the semiconductor. You are taking another semiconductor, but this conduction band and valence band is lie in between the first semiconductor. As a result, what happens if we shine the light? So the electron hole pair separation takes place. Electron move here, then the holes arrow move here. Then as a result, the reduction and oxidation process happen in the same semiconductor. So, but if you look at the type 2 heterojunction, this is the efficient system. Why? Because as already mentioned that the electrons are moving here, the holes are moving here. Why? Because the valence band level below this valence band level. As a result, the reduction happen in the second semiconductor, the oxidation happen in the first semiconductor. But the third broken gap, it will not use it for that oxidation and reduction purpose. Why? Because of this band alignment. So you can make this material, but it is useless material. So this heterojunction is not useful for the any purpose. And the surface heterojunction. What is surface heterojunction? You are having the nanoparticle. You are just to take one nanoparticle. You look at the surface. So if you look at the surface, the top one that have that different facet, then the other side that will have different facet. So that means this will behave as a one semiconductor. This will behave as another semiconductor. So in single particle, the oxidation process that will be occur in particular surface. The reduction process also occurs in different surface. Why? Because while changing this facet itself, there is a change in the band position. As a result, this surface heterojunction is formed. Then the p-n heterojunction. The p-n heterojunction is formed between the p-type semiconductor and the n-type semiconductor. While you are combining p and the n-type semiconductor together, it forms that space charge region at the interface. Then it will develop that internal electric field. As a result, what happens? The electrons are moved towards n-type semiconductor and the holes are moved towards p-type semiconductor. It also similarly follows that the type 2 semiconductor. So this is the one kind of things. Then the eject scheme heterojunction. The eject scheme heterojunction is nothing but you are simply taking semiconductor, put it into the solution, then you are add some mediator. So that mediator what will do? It will receive the electron from one semiconductor and it donate to the another semiconductor. Then that semiconductor will use that electron for the reduction purpose and the holes are used for the oxidation purpose. So this is the mediator based eject scheme. So majority of the case, the electron mediator that will be used as a metal nanoparticle. It's like a platinum, gold and silver. You can use it. But sometimes this conduction band position, which is closer to the valence band position of the next semiconductor, here you no need any mediator. So it will directly transfer the electron here. So it will transfer to the holes. Then you can use for the reduction as well as oxidation process. So these are all the different type of heterojunction. So now I will brief about the fundamentals. Okay. So initially we have seen that what is the criteria for water splitting, then the photocatalytic water splitting and photoelectrochemical cells, then the materials required for that photoelectrochemical water splitting, especially the criteria for designing the photocatalyst for photoelectrochemical water splitting, the key parameters that will derive the reaction, everything we have seen. After that, we have discussed about the two material, the bismuth based material as well as the carbon nitride based material. We have discussed about both things. So in that case, we have seen that the individual component will undergo charge recombination process. So that we have seen that alternative strategy, how we can improve the charge transfer process and then suppressing the charge recombination process. Okay, we have seen everything here. After that, the heterojunction is the best alternative for the overcoming the charge recombination process. Then we have seen that several heterojunction junctions for improving the photoelectrocatalytic performance. Okay, so now as already mentioned that the graphitic carbon nitride and bismuth based material, if we have separately, that will possess charge recombination process, right? So how I will overcome this limitation by forming the heterostructure. So I will explain with my the result obtained in my lab. Okay, so the first result I am going to discuss in this presentation, bismuth molybdate and graphitic carbon nitride heterojunctions for photoelectrocatalytic water splitting. So as already mentioned that this heterojunction was developed by my PhD student Mr. C. Murugan, inspired JSRF. Okay, so what he did, okay, so he just take that melamine. then that will be mixed with sulfate. Then he just grounded for some time. Then he put it in that furnace for calcination. Finally, he end up with this graphite carbon nitride nanostructure. Then he take this graphite carbon nitride, then put it in ethanol and sonicated for some time. Then he get a homogeneous solution. Then he take that bismuth nitride and ammonium molybdate in ethylene glycol, then added together, stirred for some time. Then he introduced this graphite carbon nitride with various weight percentage. Then it will be subject to the solvothermal treatment. Then finally we get a hierarchical structure of this heterojunction, graphite carbon nitride bismuth molybdate heterojunction. This is the morphological studies, the FESM images of bismuth molybdate, that is the single component. So this FESM image D2F, that will show that heterojunction after forming with graphite carbon nitride. So the still that hierarchical structure is maintained and the graphite carbon nitride is spread over the bismuth molybdate. Then we have taken the elemental mapping through the STM image. We have confirmed that various elements present in that nanohybrid material, especially bismuth, molybdate, oxygen, nitrogen, and carbon. So those things also we have we have confirmed from the analysis. Then we have done the XPS analysis to see the functionalities. So we have seen that the bismuth, molybdenum, and oxygen, carbon and nitrogen. So all the core level spectra also recorded and confirmed the oxidation state in that nanohybrid material. Then the functionality, what are the functionality present in that nanohybrid material over that this graphite carbon nitride, that also we have confirmed through this XPS analysis. Then the formation of heterojunction, that also confirmed by the slight shift in the binding energy for that bare bismuth molybdate and the nano heterojunction material. So you can see there is a difference in that binding energy for that bismuth and molybdate in that nanohybrid material. That clearly confirm the formation of heterojunction. Then we have done the XRD analysis. The XRD analysis clearly reveals that orthorhombic structure of bismuth molybdate and also the presence of graphite carbon nitride in that nanomaterial, and the addition of this graphite carbon nitride material into the bismuth molybdate will not affect the crystalline property, and there is no significant changes in the crystal plane position. Also, we have varied graphite carbon nitride in the bismuth molybdate. There is no appreciable shift in that XRD pattern. So we clearly confirm that this addition of this graphite carbon nitride will not affect the crystalline property of this bismuth molybdate. Then the FTIR spectrum also we have recorded. So there we have found that the different functionality like carbon nitrogen double bond, carbon double bond nitrogen and carbon single bond nitrogen, as well as metal oxide and metal oxide linkage, then the amine group. So those functionalities and all we have confirmed with this FTIR studies. So we have given the explanation here of so what are the peaks is appeared due to the which functionalities. And this is the crucial result obtained for that our material. So we just measure the surface area. So the bare material shows 48 meter square per gram. Likewise, so the bismuth molybdate also shows 44 meter square per gram. But once we make that hybrid material, the surface area got enhanced due to that the oil, because oil synthesis we did the ultrasonication, so that leads to enhance the surface area by making more exfoliation of this material. Also, you just look at this. This is the contact angle measurement. So here the graphite carbon nitride shows that lowest contact angle. The bismuth molybdate shows the highest contact angle. After making nanohybrid material, the contact angle values lies between the graphite carbon nitride and the bismuth molybdate. Why? Because after you are adding graphite carbon nitride into the bismuth molybdate, what happened? What are the terminal amine group in the graphite carbon nitride that will easily make the hydrogen bonding with the water. So that will decrease the contact angle of this bismuth molybdate. Then later we have studied the optical property of this material. So it shows that the visible light absorption capability. Then we have measured the band gap. So addition of different weight percentage of graphite carbon nitride, which leads to increase in the band gap value. So that is more beneficial for us. Then we have done that photoelectrochemical water splitting. So this photoelectrochemical water splitting, first we have recorded the LSV, linear sweep voltochrome for that controlled experiment like graphite carbon nitride, bismuth molybdate, and the best material. So in the absence of light, you can see there is no current. Likewise, when we immediately switch on the light, those materials shows the enhanced photocurrent. So that means the materials are undergoing charge separation that produce that hydrogen. As a result, here the photocurrent density increased. So here also we have varied the different weight percentage of graphite carbon nitride. There is no appreciable change here in the dark condition. Once we switch on the light, you can see there is an enhancement. So this is way we have optimized. Then we found that this 10 weight percentage of graphite carbon nitride bismuth molybdate heterojunction is showed the superior activity. Later, what we did, the same linear sweep voltogram experiment, we have chopped the illumination. That means we switch on, switch off the light frequently. As a result, whenever we switch off the light, the current will comes down. Whenever we switch on the light, the current will go up. So likewise, we have varied the potential as well as we have switch on, switch off the light with respect to time. So as a result, while increasing the potential, the photocurrent density also increased. The rise and the fall in the photocurrent also is observed. Likewise, you just look at this system. So we have optimized the applied bias potential. Then we have fixed the constant potential. Then we have performed the experiment through chronoamperometry. So here what happened? So upon there is no light, there is no current. Once we switch on the light, the currents go up and comes down. So again, we choke the illumination, it will go up and come down like that. So we have did for several cycles, the photocurrent is highly stable. So that means the prepared material is highly stable. And the charge transfer dynamics, that also we have investigated by using impedance spectroscopy. So here you can see the controlled material that show the large semicircle, but the best material shows a small semicircle. That implies that very less charge charge transfer resistance is formed for that this material. So when compared with the other material, so that's why this material shows the excellent performance. So now you just look at this. So I have designed the catalyst by considering a visible light active material we have designed. Okay, so then the band position, that also suitable. So that also we have designed. Then the charge transfer resistance, that means that the charge separation and the migration process. So that also we have fulfilled it. Then finally the stability also I check, it shows excellent. So my material fulfill all the criteria for designing the efficient photoelectrochemical hydrogen production. Okay. So now we have calculated the efficiency of our material. So among the various material we have developed with the different weight percentage of graphite carbon nitride. So this material showed 4.44 into 10 to the power minus 3 percentage of efficiency, applied bias to photo conversion efficiency. So this efficiency we have calculated by adopting this formula. Especially you just to look at this, this efficiency, especially the 10 weight percentage of graphite carbon nitride in bismuth molybdate, that shows 7-fold and 20-fold higher efficiency than that the pristine material, because this material undergo high charge recombination. So that charge recombination suppressed by forming the heterojunction between these two materials. You just make a note of this value, 4.44 into 10 to the power minus 3. Okay. So in what way we will further improve this efficiency, I will explain later. Okay. Now I have done everything. So I have prepared the material, I have studied the material, I have checked the stability, everything we have done. So now I have to propose the charge transfer mechanism. So for the proposing the charge transfer mechanism, we have calculated the valence band as well as conduction band position by using the Mulligan equation. So we are substituting the standard values available in the literature. So we have also calculated the band gap from the diffused reflectance spectra, what I have shown in that material. So we have substitute this psi value in this formula. So we have calculated the valence band position and the conduction band position for that graphite carbon nitride as well as the bismuth molybdate. Then based on that, we have drawn the structure. So accordingly, based on this energy level, this graphite carbon nitride will undergo charge separation and it oxidize the water and it produce oxygen as well as hydrogen. Then the electrons are moved to the conduction band of bismuth molybdate and it reach the FTO. Then that will be that electron will move through the circuit and reach the counter electrode. Then the proton is moved towards the counter electrode. It accepts the electron. Finally, you can able to produce hydrogen. So by oxidizing the water, you are able to produce oxygen evolution reaction. As a complementary reaction, you will get the hydrogen evolution reaction. Okay, so that's all about this bismuth molybdate and the graphite carbon nitride heterojunction. Okay, so let me see the other system is developed by the same student. So in this work, he just synthesized the bismuth tungstate and sulfur doped graphite carbon nitride heterojunctions for photoelectrochemical water stability. Okay, so for this, he just take thiourea and that will subject to that pyrolysis and polymerization process. Finally, we got that sulfur doped graphite carbon nitride. Then he take that bismuth nitrate and added with tungstate precursor. Then it will subject to stirring for some time, then subject to the hydrothermal treatment. Finally, we got that bismuth tungstate microsphere. Then he just take this one in water, then sonicated for some time. Then later he added this bismuth molybdate to this solution, subject to the ultrasonic treatment, then followed by calcination at 300 degree. Finally, we end up with the hierarchical structure of sulfur doped graphite carbon nitride bismuth vanadate nano-hybrid materials. Like the previous work, we have confirmed that the orthorhombic structure of bismuth tungstate, the crystalline property will not change during the addition of this sulfur doped graphite carbon nitride along with this bismuth tungstate. Also, the FTIR spectrum also confirmed the functionalities present in this carbon nitride as well as this bismuth tungstate. So later we did that morphological studies while we are preparing the bare material that shows microsphere that will be compressed of several nano sheets of bismuth tungstate. After that, we did the sonication by the addition of this sulfur doped graphite carbon nitride. So that will be formed the heterojunction over this microsphere. Then the TEM analysis also clearly showed that heterojunction formed in that material. So this will be belongs to that bismuth tungstate. This will be sulfur doped graphite carbon nitride. Then the cutoff image that will shows that presence of all the elements in the hybrid material, especially bismuth, tungsten, oxygen, sulfur, carbon, and nitrogen. So all the elements present in that homogeneously distributed in that material. Then we have studied the optical property. So the optical property reveals that the visible light absorption property. Then we have calculated the band gap by using Tox plot method for the bare carbon nitride and sulfur doped graphite carbon nitride and bare bismuth tungstate. Why? Because this value will be used to propose the mechanism. Later, we have done that photoelectrochemical studies of this material. Especially, you can see this. We have chosen that sulfur doped graphite carbonate, bismuth vanadate, tungstate, and then the heterojunction. So the dotted line shows that the linear sweep voltammogram obtained in the dark condition. So once the strong line that will shows that the materials exposed to the light. So that time the linear sweep voltammogram that will get enhanced. Likewise, while we recording that linear sweep voltammogram, we have choked the illumination. You can see we have varied that different weight percentage of graphite carbon nitride and recorded the photocurrent for hydrogen production. So among these three sulfur doped graphite carbon nitride bismuth tungstate showed 57.4 microampere current density. Then we have calculated that applied bias potential power conversion efficiency. So here that 3 weight percentage of sulfur doping graphite carbon nitride showed 1.68 into 10 to the power minus 3. As already told in that previous result, I ask you to make a note of that value. So that will be 4.44 into 10 to the power minus 3. So here the one order will be improved as compared with the previous system because of that doping of this graphite carbon nitride with sulfur and changing that heterojunction instead of molybdate to bismuth tungstate. Also, we have checked the stability for the prepared samples. It shows that excellent reproducibility result. You can see we have done a number of chopping. Then still that photocurrent maintained. And we have checked the durability for long-term illumination. We have tested for 1 hour. There is no appreciable change in that photocurrent. So we got that excellent durability as well as stability for this prepared material. Okay, then the charge transfer dynamics, we have calculated the RCT value by using the electrochemical impedance method. So among the various material, this sulfur doped graphite carbon nitride having 3 weight percentage showed very less RCT value. So that reveals that this material will suppress the charge recombination process. Based on that value which derived from the literature as well as the band question, we have proposed this mechanism. So here you can see this the band question for this both the semiconductor while it is in separate. So after making the heterojunction, this will oxidize the water and produce the oxygen and the proton. So then the electron are moved through the circuit and that electron will reduce the hydrogen proton to produce hydrogen. So this is why we have proposed this one. Then the final one is the PN heterojunction. So that we have made with this bismuth vanadate for that photoelectrochemical oxidation. So here we have developed this heterojunction with one P type material and another N type material. So by combining this heterojunction, we have made this photoelectrochemical water splitting. Okay, so this fabrication method is slightly different. It's not like a conventional hydrothermal or solvothermal method. So here we have developed the material over the electrode itself. So for that we have taken that bismuth nitride and ethylene glycol. We dip the electrode into the solution. Then we applied certain potential. So the bismuth nanoparticles are formed over the surface. Then we have added that vanadilyl acetate solution over the surface. Subject to the calcination, it forms a bismuth vanadate. Again, we have taken that copper oxide precursors. Then we did the electrode deposition. Finally, we got the bismuth vanadate and the copper oxide electrode. So the excited pattern clearly reveals that formation of bismuth vanadate and the additional peak in this bismuth vanadate copper oxide heterojunction. You can see some additional peak. So that is due to the copper oxide. Also, the reference pattern for that FTO also given here because we have fabricated this material over the FTO. So the reference pattern also is given here. The first A to C. So the FESM image, it shows that the formation of bismuth vanadate electrode. Then D to F, the copper oxide are covered over the surface of this heterojunction. Then later we have done that elemental mapping analysis. It clearly reveals the presence of bismuth, vanadium, oxygen, and copper in the surface in the heterojunction material. Then the XPS analysis also clearly indicates that the formation of heterojunction. Since that value, you just look at this, there is a slight shift in that binding energy level that clearly indicate the formation of heterojunction for that bismuth 4F and vanadium 2P state. Then the material, this bismuth vanadate that shows the visible absorption, onset absorption around 500. After making the heterojunction, the visible light absorption enhanced for the bismuth vanadate. So we have calculated the band gap by using the Torch plot method. Then we have performed the photoelectrochemical measurement. So here you can see these two measurements happen in the dark condition without light. Once we shine the light, so here you can expected the drastic enhancement in the photocurrent. So the previous case and all, we are able to get only less than 200 microampere photocurrent density. But the first time, once we have fabricated the material with the electrode surface, it shows that excellent performance in that photoelectrochemical water splitting activity. So you just look at that, the efficiency enhancement as compared with that bismuth vanadate, this heterojunction showed the enhanced photocurrent. Almost double, the photocurrent get doubled. Then we have measured the transient photocurrent. Then we derive the value for that recombination lifetime. When we compare, so that we derived from this data, from this transient photocurrent. So that recombination time will be for the bare material 2.81 second. But this bismuth vanadate and copper oxide, that will be increased. That is almost 1.5 times increased. So normally in bismuth vanadate electrode, the very shorter period, the electron hole pair will be recombined. But once make the heterojunction, the recombination process suppressed, then the lifetime of the electron increased. Then we have calculated the electrochemical active surface area by varying the scan rate. Then we have plotted the scan rate versus the difference in the photocurrent. Then the electrochemical active surface also increased after making the heterojunction. It is almost 1.6 fold enhanced as compared with that bismuth vanadate, bare bismuth vanadate. Okay, then the charge transfer dynamics also we have studied. Here you can see that the RCT value is very less after making the heterojunction. The bismuth vanadate showed that the charge transfer resistance value is very high. Then the frequency for this material also, it showed the higher value as compared with that the bare material. Then the surface charge transfer efficiency also we have estimated by using sodium sulfate as a sacrificial donor. Then from that we have done that linear slip fold tomogram under dark condition, illuminated condition, choked condition, everything. Then finally we have obtained that the enhanced charge separation efficiency up to 41% for that heterojunction. It almost nearly 1.8 times higher as compared with that bare bismuth vanadate. Then the charge transfer mechanism that also proposed based on that valence band spectrum from the XPS spectra. We have calculated the binding energy value and band position. Then the March-Schottky analysis also we have calculated the various parameters from this equation. Then we have substitute the value. We derived the band position. Finally, we have end up with this band position. So here you can see the bismuth vanadate showed that conduction band maximum closer to the hydrogen evolution potential. Then it is below the oxygen evolution potential. Then here, if you look at this copper oxide, that copper oxide showed that the conduction band maximum above the hydrogen evolution potential. Then this conduction band maximum it will be below the this oxidation evolution potential. This is before the contact. So once it makes the contact, as already told, it forms space charge region. So it develop the internal electric field over the interface of these two materials. So that will facilitate the electron transfer process. So as a result, what happens? This copper oxide will oxidize the water efficiently. Then it transfer the electrons to the conduction band, and the holes are moving towards copper. Then this electron will reduce the proton, then it will produce the hydrogen. As compared with the previous type 2 heterojunctions, graphitic carbon nitride, bismuth molybdate, and sulfur doped graphitic carbon nitride, sulfur doped graphitic carbon nitride, bismuth tungstate, there is an improvement in the efficiency. But after making this heterojunction, the charge transfer efficiency is almost several fold enhanced as compared to the previous system. So now we are our direction is moving towards making the thin films for this photoelectrochemical water smelting, instead of developing the material over that by Sol-Gel method or hydrothermal method or precipitation method. I think our own experience, we give suggestion, if you want to make a photoelectrochemical hydrogen production, better you can fabricate the electrode directly by depositing the material over the surface of the substrate. Then the applied bias potential for efficiency also we have calculated. You just look at this. The previous case, 1.19 into 10 to the power minus 2 percentage. But here you can see 0.3 percentage efficiency we have achieved. That is again some 2-order enhancement in that the applied bias photo conversion efficiency. Then the stability also we have proved with respect to the time. Then finally the stability of the material also we have checked. So the material after the hydrogen production also the property doesn't change, the morphology doesn't change. So with this we have concluded this material is promising one. So based on the result, we are developing several heterojunctions in our laboratory. So before going to summary, I just want to show another video. Is that video visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I will just show that how the hydrogens are produced. I'm not going to give detailed experimental part. Okay. So this is our photoelectrochemical cell. So this is that counter electrode. So the other side, what we have prepared that electrode, the heterojunction will be the working electrode. Okay. So now it is in dark condition. So there is no hydrogen was observed. We have now switch on the light. Then the other side, the water oxidation process started. Now you can just look at these bubbles. You can able to see the bubbles, right? So that bubble is hydrogen. So immediately switch on the light, water oxidation takes place. That oxygen produced to the other side, and the protons are released. That protons are passed through this. This is the proton exchange membrane. Through this, the proton exchange membrane, the protons are moved towards counter electrode. The electron that is flow through the circuit and it reaches the counter electrode, and it reduces the proton to hydrogen, and you can see the hydrogen bubbles. So this is what we are doing in our laboratory. You want to see the water oxygen evolution. This is we call it as a hydrogen evolution reaction. So you want to see that oxygen evolution reaction, that also I will show you. So, but I will check. Okay, I will show the oxygen evolution reaction also. So here the material what we have fabricated, this is the material. So this is, we call it as a HER, hydrogen evolution reaction. I could not find the exact time. Now you can see this is the OER, oxygen evolution reaction over the heterojunction surface. You can see the bubbles over the surface of the electrode. So here water oxidation takes place, oxygen is produced, then the protons are moved through the proton exchange membrane. Finally, you will get a hydrogen evolution reaction on the counter electrode. Okay, so this is what we are doing in our laboratory for that hydrogen production. Okay, so this is my last slide. So this is summary of my presentation. So in this presentation, initially we have talked about the government policy on the electrical vehicle, but what is the obstacles, the barriers while implementing that electrical vehicle. So alternatively, we have seen that the hydrogen is a fuel that can be used to drive the electrical vehicle, and also we can use it for our near future applications. Then the hydrogen production can be done with several methods. Among this, the photoelectrochemical method and its merits also we have discussed. Later, we have discussed about some of the materials which you used for hydrogen production. Then the limitations in the material for the hydrogen production also discussed. To overcome this, drawbacks in that material, we have detailedly discussed about the heterojunction strategies. Then finally, we have discussed some of the materials developed in my lab for hydrogen production. Also, I have shown the performance of the material which I developed in my lab. So that also I have shown in this presentation. So with this, so this is our future dream. So we have to power the electrical vehicle by using solar produced hydrogen to drive the vehicle. So this is our future dream. With this, in this occasion, I would like to remember that I would like to thank my professor R. Ramaraj for providing immense knowledge in that area of photoelectrochemistry. So for that, I want to remember in this occasion. Without his support and sharing the knowledge, I cannot gain the experience in the area of photoelectrochemistry. I cannot perform any independent research at CSIR SICRI. So with this, thank you all. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your nice presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
Dear participants, kindly share your questions.
Sir, 2 questions are posted in the chat box. Can you able to see?
Sir?
Yes, madam.
Sir, 2 questions are posted in the chat box.
Yeah, I'm checking now.
Okay, sir.
You are talking about the band gap increase in the heterojunction. Where exactly it happened? At the interface only. Yes, actually it is happened in the interface, but it's not actually the band gap increased. So this will shift the onset absorption. So that will reflect in that material. So you cannot distinguish that this material got increased like that. So it happened at the interface because of that onset absorption is moving towards either blue shift or red shift in that DRS spectra. Based on that, when we say that any core level peak shift in that HBS, what reference you consider to confirm it is not due to the charging effect. It's not due to the charging effect. We have referred the already existing literature. So whenever the core level spectrum is just get shifted, it's not a drastic change. Even binding energy values of 1 electron volt or 2 electron volt. It's not due to the charging. So it's due to the formation of a heterojunction, because if you form the heterojunction, the Fermi level for the both semiconductor will be different. Once it get both will be get form the heterojunction, there is the alignment in the Fermi level. So that's why we consider that a slight shift in the peak due to the formation of heterojunction. We will use that evidence as a confirmation for the heterojunction formation.
So participants, any questions?
Yeah, some more questions. Which metal alloy not affect hydrogen gas? I didn't get that question. Can you post in a different way? Suppose if you use that metal nanoparticle or alloy nanoparticle in the photocatalyst, that will called as a co-catalyst. Especially that will facilitate the oxygen evolution as well as the hydrogen evolution reaction. Especially suppose if you are using plasmonic nanoparticle, it forms the Schottky junction. So because both will undergo charges Fermi level equilibration, then you can both the way the electron will be it can be easily travel over the forward direction or backward direction.
So any other questions? Thank you, sir. Participants, kindly switch on your video for photo session. So, dear participants, please mute your video and audio. Thank you, sir, for your excellent and informative lecture. Certainly, it is very useful for young researchers and the society. You have elaborated solar hydrogen production, fundamental mechanism of photocatalysis, types of photoelectrochemical cells, photoelectrocatalytic water splitting, photocatalyst for hydrogen production, carbon nitride, graphitic carbon nitride, reaction pathway for development of graphitic carbon nitride, and types of heterojunction, etc. So once again, thank you for accepting our invitation. In future, also we need your support. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Shall I leave?
Okay.